Hello and welcome back to the Nash Metal production channel here, YouTube. And wow, welcome to another list video, which I haven't done one of these. Of course, this list video is a one on the 70s, of course, 1975. This, of course, is the top 25 of 1975. Of course, I didn't do one of these for when I did hard and heavy 70s. For last year's April, I didn't do one. So, better late than never. Or better, better do it now than later. Of course, I kind of, the one I did for Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lives video, The Chosen Few, I kind of teased that I was going to do this anyway. So, without further ado and enough chatting, this is probably going to be split into some parts here, of course. I know that Scott Wires is doing his series, and someone's going to be finishing up here, the top 88, but me, I still got to do my 70s stuff. So, with that, let's get in. So, of course, I have to also bring up some honorable mentions, though, because of it, it kind of almost comes out about 28 albums. So, I had to split it to at least 25, so 6, 7, yeah, there was about 3 I had to cut out. So, of course, albums I don't have is Entranced by Scorpions. It's a great album, but I don't have that one, so it ain't gonna be in the list. So, I'm just throwing out one right there. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the actual honorable mentions here. One being David Bowie's Fame, which I just got to listening to this album at least a few months ago, or 2 months ago at least, and it's a fine record, really. It's fine, but I didn't really listen to it very much to actually really get a solid description and everything of it, and for me to really want to feel like I need to keep this in my list. But it's a fine album. One of the songs here, for sure, that I recognize the most, of course, is Somebody Up There Likes Me, and of course the hit on here, the song Fame. This was definitely also the departure from his more glam rock sounds that started, like, I guess pretty much with Ziggy Stardust up to about Diamond Dogs, which all those I definitely do like his glam rock period the most. But this sounds fine. This is more of a funk soul kind of album than really a straight up sort of glam rock album, and he had definitely changed up the image to fit the sort of this kind of style of album. But either way, it's a fine album. I ain't knocking out for being bad or anything. Just the fact is, I haven't given enough of it to actually really feel like I need to stay on the list. So, but again, it's a solid record. Next one up is, of course, another album I never given much care to actually listen to very much until when I was putting this list together. That's another honorable mention that goes to, of course, Jeff Beck's first solo album, Blow by Blow. Again, solid album. His sort of beginning foray into that slight take on jazz fusion in a way, even though it's still within rock, though jazz fusion was always kind of a mixture between rock and jazz, so hence why it's called jazz fusion, and it's a solid record. The actual album I actually do remember giving quite a bit of spins was Wired, and that was one that came after this one, but this is a solid album, but I didn't listen to it enough to where I felt like I need to keep this in the list. So, not knocking it down. It was a solid listen, and Jeff Beck is a great guitar player, but I just didn't give enough listen to really keep in the list. This time I have given about 2 listens, but still it's not because of the other one that I actually have in here, and for a lot of historical reasons. And it's a good record, but this one is good. This is the last down from Argent Counterpoints, because this was, I think, the first and only album to not feature, oh god, the other guy. I actually do. Let me kind of bring it up. The one that did Ride with the Angels, which of course has been covered by plenty of new wave or British heavy metal bands. There, Russ Ballard. This was the first one to not feature Russ Ballard on guitar, who of course went left to pursue a more solo career. But still, this is a solid prog rock album. Very good, actually. But there was another one in here, and I'm going to probably end up breaking a slight rule for a certain album to be on my top 25. But still, it's a solid album. So, there, counterpoints as an honorable mention. So that's it for all the honorable mentions. Let's finally get into the actual list. The actual list and everything, the actual album. So, finally. So here we go. Finally, the top 25 of 1975. So, yeah, I know that kind of rhymes, huh? 25 of 1975, 5-5, whatever. Alright, so making it at number 25 is, well, surprisingly, this, Lou Reed's Live. Now, of course, this was the second half of the Rock and Roll Animal show, because basically both Rock and Roll Animal, which was released a year prior, and this were recorded all at the same show, but everything was split up into two parts basically. So in a way, you kind of for those that knocked this record down, when I first listened to this, the only reason is the fact that it's got Dig Wagner, Penny Glan, Parkus John, and Steve Hunter, who of course would all pretty much mostly get taken by Alice Cooper for the Welcome to My Nightmare album. So Alice Cooper would pretty much just pretty much steal that backing band here for Lou Reed to go on to record Welcome to My Nightmare, and would become the Alice Cooper's new band. So that's one of the reasons, and anyone that knocks down both these two shows, I think these are solid. I think you have to hear them as one, though, basically. I know there's like fan-made versions of both this and that combine the whole two to make the same show, and it's for sure great. And of course, one of the reasons is that has me keeping this is the fact that there's a reason for why Alice Cooper went and took up these members. That was back in Lou Reed here, like mostly for Dig Wagner and Steve Hunter. Both the two rip on the whole album. This might be the closest I think Lou Reed got to a full-on hard rock album, basically. Just there's a lot of great guitar work, a lot of great, even the versions of like Walk on the Wild Side, I'm Waiting for the Man, Vicious, Satellite of Love, and Oh Jim, and Sad. They all take these songs and basically they add a lot of gusto behind them, and I never given much of Lou Reed's stuff a whole lot of chance. It's like I do remember giving albums like Berlin and of course Metal Machine, which was released the same year as this. Funny enough, but I never give him. It's like I just never much stayed to actually listen to his stuff all that much. It's like I liked a bit of it, but it's just that it's not really my cup of tea at times, but I'm not knocking him down at all. Of course, sadly, no longer alive. Of course, passed away November 2013. Still, when I gave this record, I didn't know what to really expect, but I was actually blown away by this. This is of course, I do remember hearing Rock and Roll Animal a long time ago, and that's a great album, of course. I would love to revisit, but this album's good. I would say this and Rock and Roll Animal need to be played all at once to get the full experience. But if you were able to get the 2 CD version of this and do editing to kind of place the tracks in the right order that they're played at on that same night, you've got yourself the full package in a way. This is I would say killer, but because I only listened to it one time actually. But it was enough to really just like that, sell me. But still, it's a great album. So there. So I've talked a little bit, just a bit long on this album here. So they're at 25, Lou Reed Live. All right. So, oh shit. Yeah, Yeah, that was funny. I was for a second, I'm looking at the list here, and I thought I had it the wrong order. No, I've got it the right order. All right, so coming at number 24 here, going to CD, is Bad Company Straight Shooter, which is a solid, I would say was a solid follow-up to Bad Company's first album, which I do like that album quite a bit. I do like it, but I always kind of, because of most of that album, can almost be considered a greatest hit sound, because I think you'll mostly hear those songs on radio a lot. Of course, the title track gets played. I've had a compilation that had most of those songs anyways. So, this album, though, has a slightly bit of deep cuts. Sure, you might hear, of course, Shooting Star. You might hear a bit on the radio. Maybe Deal with the Preacher, which I remember hearing a long time ago. But still, I think there are some decent songs. I think there are some good songs on here. Of course, Feel Like Making Love is another sort of big song off of here. But I think as a whole, I've always kind of felt I kind of like this one just a bit more than the debut, but not knocking the both. This is, I think, was a solid album, but it's a good album, but not enough to really put up a little bit higher on the list. But still, it belongs in my list. But so there you go, Straight Shooter from Bad Company. Coming at number 23 is Journey's debut album, and of course this is not the Journey with Steve Perry. This is the Journey when it was only just Greg Raleigh, Neil Sean, and I think even Anzi Dunbar was also the member on here as well. It's just, and a few of the other members I can't see because of when you're looking at the back cover, at least, to see the band members, they have to make it so blurry that you can't even see. Still, this was a solid debut, I would say, from Journey. I would say kind of like the Jeff Beck album, though a little bit heavier, because it's still rooted within the sort of jazz fusion kind of stuff, also taking a little bit of the stuff that Neil Sean and Greg Raleigh were doing in Santana originally. But they definitely add a little bit more of a hard rock kind of feel to it, but still, I would say it's more so within like progressive rock and jazz fusion to kind of make up this pretty solid album. I actually really dug this, and I never listened to this one very much, because the one I listened to a lot more was Look Into the Future and Next, which are the other two that I have. And this one and those two, because I got the box set, the 3-album set or so. It's got the 3 albums here, and I of course have a vinyl copy of Captured, which is probably the best album, one of the best albums I would say with the Steve Perry era Journey. It was a live album, but it's probably the best I would say. Still, this is a great debut, I would say. Definitely is, sure, at times mostly instrumental, but I would say this overall presentation at times is quite heavy for what. And I like the primitiveness of some of the album, and for me, this is enjoyable and one of the best things Journey has ever did. So, at number 23, Journey's self-titled. Now, coming in at number 23 is, let me still see if my audio is recording this. I just gotta don't want to screw anything up. So again, coming in at number 22 is the 3rd album from Rush, and that's Caress of Steel. This is, I would say, is one of the last. This sound really bridges the gap between their more primitive, straightforward, hard rock, slightly proto-metal of their first 2 albums, but kind of showing, like, transitioning into what they were going to do with 2112 and later on when they became a full-on prog rock band. And this sound is showing a little bit of that, but there still is a bit of that sort of hard rock proto-metal on the sound with songs such as Bastille Day. Even the silliness that is, of course, I Think I'm Going Bald, which I actually dig that tune. But even also the proto-metalist is also still kept within one of their first really full-on prog songs. That's, of course, the Necromancer, which is pretty much, if you were to split it, it would be in the 3 parts. Basically, the Necromancer consists of Into the Darkness, which clocked in at 4:12 here, Under the Shadow at 4:25, and Return of the Prince at 351. I would say Under the Shadow might be the heaviest part of the song, because that's where it really tends to rip quite a bit if you've ever paid attention to the song and how which part goes into what. But it's a damn fine track, and one of the best of the Prodigy songs on here, because it ends with the Fountain of Lameth, which is pretty much almost around 20 minutes long, basically, and it consists of 6 parts. Basically, Into the Valley, which clocked in at 413, Didax and Narpitz. I hope I pronounced that one right, which is the shortest part of the this fucking almost 20 minutes long track, which is 102. No One at the Bridge is at 418, and Panacea, I guess, calls at 314. Bacchus Plateau, which of course clocks at 314, and the Fountain, which ends this long ass track, 350. So, but with all that, I kind of felt like the Fountain of Lameth is kind of almost overstays a bit of its welcome, because the Necromancer I always felt like is put together very well. And because of the fact that it goes into some of the heaviest points of it, and it really has a great, I'll say, balance. This one, it's like they recorded 6 songs, basically, but they decided, since they were so ambitious of what they wanted to do, would kind of make this sort of song, or this song that tells a story, and decided to take these 6 songs and combine together, whereas the Necromancer just sounds like one 12 minute and 30-second track. So it's kind of a little bit almost shaky a little bit. But still, it's a fine closer to a pretty decent album, actually, from Rush. But definitely, they would kind of perfect, I guess, their prog sort of style on 2112. But still, I think it's a good album. Definitely some of the highlights for me are Bastille Day, I Think I'm Going Bald, and The Necromancer. So, good album from Rush. Alright, so coming at number 21 is, again, another Canadian band. That's, of course, is Moxie with their self-titled debut, and this is a great album. Great album. Of course, best known for having quite a bit of guitar parts from Tommy Bolin. And, of course, we'll get to some Tommy Bolin maybe here soon. We'll see. But still, this is a solid debut album from this almost short-lived Canadian group. Because they only released about 4 albums, and then that was kind of it. Then they came back a few decades later. But this is, again, also from, of course, the first to feature, of course, singer, let's see, get out the, here, Buzz Sherman, who, of course, sadly would pass away in, like, the early 80s, I think, early to mid-80s, which, kind of a short career for the guy, because of all he did was this, Moxie 2, and Riding High, and then he had left Moxie, did some stuff with Lee Aaron, and then that was kind of it. Then he would sadly pass away on a part of, I think it was a motorcycle accident. But still, there's some great stuff here. Fantasy, Sail On, Sail Away, Moonrider, Time to Move On, Still I Wonder, Train, and Out of the Darkness, Into the Fire. This is a great album. Just some killer 70s hard rock from this pretty underrated Canadian hard rock band. So, there, 21, Moxie's self-titled debut. Finally now, coming at number 20 is this classic album from this small 3-piece Texas group. And that's, of course, this Fandango from ZZ Top. Basically, half live, half studio release from them, because the first side consists of a live show, basically. Pretty much consists of songs such as Thunderbird, the cover of Jailhouse Rock, and Backdoor Medley, which features quite a bit of covers anyways within there. And the live part, the first time I heard this was actually, that 6-pack comp that was released back in the late 80s, which took pretty much the first 5 ZZ Top albums along with El Loco, but remixed those albums to make them sound more modern at that time of the 80s. And for the time, I think only the live songs I think were very untouched because of how really can you, because I think adding those drum sounds would have really took out on that, would have made the live songs unauthentic. But still, that's how I remember it. But I always kind of thought they had, as a kid, that was it of that live album. They only that was all they added from Fandango. But when I found out, it was basically half live, half studio. So I only listened to a lot of the studio tracks because for me, the real best parts of the sound, even though I like the live part of it, it's a good part of the album. But to me, it's the studio stuff. Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings is a killer blues, heavy blues track. Blue G Blues, Balinese, of course, Hurt on the X, and the very classic Tush. Hurt on the X is a fast rocker, probably one of the fast songs ZZ Top has ever recorded. And I think even live it's much heavier. Probably the closest ZZ Top actually to making a proto-speed metal song. And it's a great album, I would say, though. Though not my favorite, really, from ZZ Top, but it still is a fine release from this trio. So, of course, pre-MTV era ZZ Top. So there you go. At number 20, Fandango from ZZ Top. Alright, coming in number 19 is what's playing in the background, and I just got into this album a few years ago, actually. That's, of course, is another Canadian artist. This is Neil Merriweather with Kryptonite. And this is a damn good album. This is probably, and of course, if you don't know who Neil Merriweather is, Canadian bass player, definitely did quite a bit in the early 70s and all the way to the 70s and stuff. But he also is the bass player on Lita Ford's Out for Blood. And for the longest time, I never knew who the hell Neil Merriweather was until, and the longest time I heard that album, I never thought much of the members in that band other than who Lita Ford was. But when the TV show Ash vs. Evil Dead, which was pretty much continuing the Evil Dead series that was on Starz for about 3 years, the second season, the first episode, usually within that series, whenever it comes to end credits, they always use some classic rock track or so. But on that one, there was a certain particular song, and I was like, who is that? This sounds good. And I kept looking, trying to find the credits, who is this person, until I then decided to check out this person in Neil Merriweather. I had forgotten that the guy was the bass player on Lita Ford's Out for Blood. So I go and look up this guy, and I see what album it's off of. It's a song called Star Rider, and it's off this album called Kryptonite. So I went and checked out the whole entire album on YouTube. I was just blown away by how heavy half this album is. This is pretty rock and stuff as well. And Neil Merriweather was when looking at his stuff, kind of a little diverse. Because it wasn't all about being hard rock, whatever, even though there was like blues rock a little bit in there, almost like kind of like the early Fleetwood Mac stuff in a way. But this album is just pushing it towards, again, the first Moxie album, Rush, or Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, and some of those artists. And this is just a fucking killer album. Again, the title track of Star Rider, which I had just previously mentioned, is a great track. Always Will Be You. Give It Everything We Got, which just has some killer guitar soloing in this one as well. And at times, heaviness in this. Almost has a slight Uriah Heep feel going on. And then the groove, you know where I'd rather be. This is a fucking great album, and for one of the reasons why I actually had to put the sound a little bit higher here. This is just killer album, and really the only straight up hard rock album Neil Merriweather has ever put out. So, damn. So that's at number 19, Kryptonite from Neil Merriweather. Definitely highly recommended album. Though trying to obtain vinyl copies is a little bit difficult, so I had to settle with that.